In the middle of the night, a strong-looking man found himself on the verge of tears as he received a devastating diagnosis from the cardiologist. Despite experiencing months of painful heart symptoms, he had hesitated to seek medical attention, as many men do. Only when the pain became unbearable and his breathing labored did he finally call for an ambulance, much to the urging of his wife. After spending a month in the hospital undergoing numerous tests, he received the final diagnosis. It felt like a death sentence with no possibility of appeal. He had a serious heart condition that required a costly operation to have any chance of prolonging his life. Without it, his days were numbered and he could pass away at any moment. Forget those doctors. They don't know a thing about life. I've only got a year left, and all they want is to take my money. But I'll show everyone how to have a good time. Even if I've only got a year left, I'll make it so devilishly fun that they'll be sick of me. With this resolve, Vanya comforted himself. On his way home, he stopped at his old workplace, the local plant where he had worked as a forklift driver. In the personnel department, he submitted a resignation letter, stating that he had a terminal illness and didn't have much time left. The HR lady immediately informed the rest of the staff, and within an hour, they had collected money for him to use on medicines. Then he was sent off with kind wishes and in peace. Now that Ivan had a lot of free time and a small cart, he didn't hurry home. His wife, a waitress who couldn't offer much help and would only cry, was waiting for him there. This made his already fragile health even worse. As Ivan reached into his pocket, he felt the pleasant crunch of the bills. Though it wasn't enough for the necessary operation, he reasoned that the money could still bring him pleasure. With the bills, he could treat himself to the company of women in a restaurant or try his luck at the gambling house. Perhaps, if he was lucky, he could win big and live a life of luxury. And so he did, spending his evenings entertaining himself with the company of prostitutes and indulging in expensive dishes at the pub. However, his luck soon ran out as he lost all his money to the slot machines. He barely had enough left to pay for the services of the women he had been with. Ivan knew that his cheerful life was coming to an end, and he would soon be forced to sit in front of the TV and endure the constant sobbing of his foolish wife. As he walked towards his rented apartment in a 5-story building, he noticed a lit window in the kitchen. Despite the late hour, he paid no attention to it. To Ivan, his wife was nothing more than a possession, something to be discarded and worthless if he so desired. Vanya had a deep admiration for Oriental culture and their views on women. He believed that women should know their place, and our women were getting too ambitious by demanding equal rights. They were even taking jobs that paid more than men, which Vanya found unacceptable. In his mind, he imagined himself as a sultan who could show these women how to behave, alongside the ladies of easy virtue and his own wife. He believed that the kitchen was the only place for women like them. Upon entering his apartment, Vanya carelessly threw his snowy shoes around, oblivious to the hard work his wife Svetlana had put into keeping the place clean. He didn't appreciate the delicious meals she had prepared for him, which were always ready when he returned home from work. To him, it was just a routine. As soon as he walked in, Svetlana rushed out of the kitchen, worried sick about him and frantically trying to reach him on his phone. She hugged and kissed him, expressing her relief that he was safe. Vanya dismissed her concern and joked that she would soon find him in the hospital if he continued his reckless behavior. He didn't seem to appreciate her love and care, taking her for granted and failing to acknowledge her hard work and devotion to him. As Sveta lay in bed, her mother's words echoed in her mind. The news from the doctor was devastating. Her husband was going to die. Sveta tried to listen for any sounds from the other room, but her ears felt muffled and she couldn't hear clearly. Suddenly, she heard her daughter scream, piercing through her eardrums, "Mama." Sveta's head snapped to the right, then to the left, trying to locate the source of the scream. As she struggled to stand up, the room spun around her. She stumbled over to her husband, Ivan, and clung to his legs, too weak to stand. Tears streamed down her face as she tried to comprehend the news about his condition. But Ivan only pushed her away, causing her to crash into the wall. "Why are you clinging to me?" he snapped. "Don't you understand that I'm very sick? Let me go, I want to eat." Sveta retreated to the hallway, sobbing as she curled up in a corner. Despite her distress, she couldn't help but think about the roast she had cooked for Ivan. She had left it in the oven, wanting it to be warm and ready for him when he returned home. And now, as she wept in the hallway, Ivan was enjoying the meal without her. But even that was not appreciated by the excellent spouse. He stuffed his belly and went into the bedroom, and soon his sound of sound snoring could be heard from there. Rising from the floor, Sveta went into the room and carefully covered Vanya with a warm blanket, stood beside him for a long time, lovingly pulling away his disheveled hair from his eyes. The woman knew about her husband's fatal illness, knew that the treatment required an operation abroad, for which they did not have money and could not be. However, the waitress was not going to despair. Long before that, she thought of the only way to earn money for the treatment of her husband. It was disgusting and shameful, but Sveta saw no other way. 6 months passed. In a cramped hotel room, wiping away her tears in the semi-darkness, a young, beautiful woman was waiting for her next client. She had been serving trays of food in the restaurant until 3 in the morning, and now her main job was beginning. In the name of saving her husband, Svetlana became a corrupt woman. Thanks to her stunning appearance, more than once she was asked by some visitors to the restaurant for services that are clearly not part of the duties of the waitress. But every time such clients were gently sent away. Unfortunately, times are changing, and the woman found herself unable to keep track of the number of visitors she had received in the past 6 months. She was disgusted with herself, but it was the only way to save her husband. Suddenly, the door creaked open, and a tall man in an expensive suit entered the room. The waitress readied herself to please the man once again, but he recoiled from her advances. Instead, he sat on the edge of the bed and spoke in a trembling voice. "Hello, Sveta. I never thought I would see you in such a place. You were always so correct, honest, and modest. How did you end up living like this?" The woman looked closely and recognized her client as Igor, a boy who had carried her briefcase home when they were both in 5th grade. He had been her first love, but so much time had passed since then. A friend of his had ordered her services for him, but he recognized her and came in person instead. He couldn't believe that she was capable of such a thing. After getting married, she resorted to a disgusting means of earning money to pay for her husband's surgery, a secret she couldn't bear to reveal. At dawn, a luxurious foreign car pulled up outside the 5-story building where Svetlana and her husband resided, and a joyful woman rushed out of it carrying a weighty package. "Thank you so much. If it weren't for you, I would have sunk into a black hole. Time is running out, and I'll repay you," she said as she bid her farewell. "It's nothing. Your work made me love you even more than before." "I only wish we had met earlier," Igor replied, greatly embarrassing Sveta. She hurried home to share the good news with her husband, whose life had been saved. Trembling with anticipation, she opened the door to their apartment with a trembling hand, and quietly tiptoed through the hallway to peek into the bedroom, not wanting to wake Vanya. However, the poor woman nearly fainted in the next moment as the keys slipped from her hands and clattered on the floor. She beheld a terrible sight, one she wouldn't wish on her worst enemy. On their marital bed, her beloved Vanya was soundly asleep in the embrace of 2 women. He had lost all sense of morality, indulging in infidelity within the confines of his own home, while his wife toiled away at work. When the sound of jangling keys disturbed their slumber, all 3 of them were roused from their sleep. Rather than attempting to make amends, Ivan shifted the blame onto his wife, accusing her of neglecting him and justifying his betrayal with the argument that he was nearing the end of his life and should experience all that it had to offer while his heart still had enough love to give. In response to her husband's callousness, the betrayed wife fled their home, heartbroken and hurt. Ivan's callous words echoed in her mind. "Get out of here, you fool. The other women will take care of me." Only a month later, Ivan lay in a hospital bed, barely clinging to life in the intensive care unit. As his mortality loomed large before him, he reconsidered the choices he had made throughout his existence. Overcome with regret, he yearned to seek his wife's forgiveness before taking his last breath. However, his attempts to reach out to her were in vain, as she had disappeared without a trace and refused to answer his calls. As Ivan prepared to bid farewell to his life, a glimmer of hope appeared in the form of his doctor's entrance into the room. "Congratulations, Petrov. You were born lucky, but with a few more days, that luck would have run out. However, someone paid for your operation, and you'll be transported to Germany today." Petrov couldn't believe his ears and asked in a trembling voice, "Who paid for it?" His wife Svetlana, a kind and noble person, responded, "Don't you talk to your own wife? I paid for it. I slept with someone who wasn't worth my little finger, but it was worth it to see happiness slowly returning to my broken heart." At the time, Svetlana and Igor were just friends, but everything promised to take a completely different turn soon. They were truly meant for each other. Ivan, on the other hand, regretted his boredom and his own stupidity. He had lost the most important things in life in the blink of an eye. Only then did he realize how much his wife meant to him, but it was too late. She would never forgive him for his betrayal. It's a simple truth that many people forget. We only weep for what we have lost when we haven't kept it.